Hello everyone, as promised, here is a little thing on SWOT analysis. Hopefully that will make things a little clearer if you do have any doubts. This is the second time I've done it because I've just realised watching the original video how much I go when I'm talking. I never realised I did that so much, so I'm deliberately trying to control that now. Anyway, SWOT analyses. Often we introduce these concepts to you and we just assume that they're obvious or that you know what we're talking about. So I thought it was a good time to just go through and explain why we do these things and what the point of them is. Now obviously SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and it's just a way of looking at something, analysing something in a business context, usually a company or business, and determining what factors have an influence upon it. So obviously the type of analysis you do will depend on what you're interested in. So if you are, say, for example, in charge of a successful company in the UK and you're thinking of expanding into Germany, you're not that bothered about the internal factors of your company because you know your company is well managed, it's making a good profit, it's got a qualified workforce and so on. What you want to know is what Germany is like for you. So in that sort of circumstance, you would do a Porter's 5 forces, because that would look at the sort of competition you would face in Germany, what the market is like in Germany, what the suppliers are like in Germany, and so on. It's looking at a marketplace, possibly a different marketplace. If you're only interested in the external factors, again, you know your company is fairly well managed internally, but you just want to see what sort of external things are going to affect you in the future, then in that sort of situation you perhaps do a pest analysis, or otherwise known as a steep analysis or a pestle analysis. They're all much of a muchness, because that looks at the external factors, the political factors, the economic factors, the social factors, the technological factors, the legal factors, and so on, the environmental factors that will impact on your company. However, if you just want a general overview, you want to know everything of potential interest about a company, everything that affects it on an internal level, everything that affects it on an external level, then you will do a SWOT analysis. Now you could, say you were an investor and you wanted to invest in McDonald's, for example, you could just go up to someone who knows something about McDonald's and go, okay, I'm going to invest in McDonald's, what are they like? And that person could go, oh, well, you know, they make good profits, they're a global brand, possibly some trouble with franchising though, and so on. And that's fine, as far as it goes. It's just, it's not a very organized way of presenting the information that you'd be interested in. And it's perhaps not as in-depth. When you're working with a framework, like a SWOT analysis, it focuses your mind on the sort of things you should be thinking about, the questions you should be asking, so you're going to get a more in-depth analysis than just going, okay, what are they like? Are they any good? You know, say it's fine as far as it goes, but a SWOT analysis lets you really dig deep and then organize your findings. So, with that out of the way, which I hopefully explains why we do them, how do we do them? So here we have a SWOT grid or a SWOT table. We have our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats in the table. So of course with TMA2, as I say, I'll be posting a video that goes into more detail on TMA2 in a few days, in fact, with more specific guidance on what you need to do. But just in terms of SWOT analysis in general, first of all you find your information. So in the real world this would be possibly annual reports, things from Mintel, maybe, web research, until you find your information about the company, and then you obviously break your information down into your noun groups, your sort of 2, 3, 4 word little groups: good profits, highly skilled management, new law, costing money, and so on. And once you've got all those written down, as you did in TMA1 for your summary, you've got all those written down, you think, okay, I've now discovered all this information about what I'm analysing, in this case for TMA2 Brompton. I go, right, okay, well, where do they go What are they? These factors, are they strengths, are they weaknesses, are they opportunities or threats? Now, the thing to remember with these are obviously that strengths and opportunities are positive things. The weaknesses and threats are negative things. And then, of course, the other thing you need to consider is that strengths and weaknesses are internal to the company or organization, and opportunities and threats are external. And that hopefully should guide you on what that information that you've discovered are. Are they strengths, are they weaknesses, are they opportunities, and so on. So yes, weaknesses and threats are negative, obviously. Strengths and opportunities are positive. Strengths and weaknesses are internal to the company. Opportunities and threats are external. Now let's just think of some examples that we can put in here. A new law has come in. It's going to cost a company a lot of money to abide to. So a new law has come in. It's going to cost us a lot of money. It's a negative. Now, is it internal or external to the company? Well, it's something external because the company can't control it. So it's a threat. It's negative and external, so it's a threat. Okay, let's have a look at another one. Big profits year on year, we've discovered. Well, that's a positive thing, I would imagine. So it's going to be one of these two. And it's internal to the company. If we're looking at McDonald's, KFC don't care about our profits. It's our profits. It's something internal to the company. So it's a positive internal thing. So it's a strength. Okay, let's think of another one. Very young, inexperienced workforce. Okay, so the company has a young, inexperienced workforce. It's a negative. And it's also internal to the company. You could hire a more experienced workforce if they wanted to, but they haven't. They could change it. It's internal. So it's a weakness, internal weakness. So, sorry, an internal negative. So it's a weakness. Then we have perhaps, just as an example of an opportunity, we would have something like expanding into new markets. It's external to the company. It's new markets. Don't know. They have no real control of what's going on in the market, but it's it's a positive thing. Hopefully. As hopefully you might have realized as we're going through some of these, even with something like this, where it's a nice, fairly organized framework of positive, negative, internal, external, some of these things could actually be considered as both. For example, expanding into new markets, we hope it's an opportunity, but it could be a threat, depending on the situation of the company. If it's got a very poor financial backup behind it, it could be a risk that they shouldn't really be taking, in which case it could be considered a threat. Similarly, young, inexperienced workforce. We've got it as a weakness because they're constantly making mistakes and they're leaving after they've been there for 2 weeks and so on. However, it could possibly be considered a strength. They could be easily trained into your corporate culture. They could be sort of young, dynamic, and all the rest of it. In which case, it could be considered a creative. In which case, it could be considered a strength. Now, in terms of TMA2, this is what the second section of TMA2 is about, where you have to write after you've done your table, like this. You then move on to doing your paragraphs. So you have a paragraph on the strengths, a paragraph on the weaknesses, a paragraph on the opportunities, and so on. Now, those are a good opportunity for you to go into more detail on what you've discovered by doing the table, explaining your findings a little bit more, and perhaps highlighting these little glitches. You know, why have you got inexperienced workforce as a weakness rather than as a strength? Or why have you got expanding into new markets as a threat? You know, well, I think it's an opportunity, but you've said it's a threat. Why? It's those little paragraphs where you would say, it's a threat because they can't afford it. It's going to make them go bump. And so on. But that's basically your SWOT analysis. It's a way of analyzing the factors that have an impact on a company and arranging them according to things that are positive, the strengths and opportunities, or negative, the weaknesses and threats. And then beyond that, those things that the company has control over, that are internal, both positive, you know, strong management, well-trained workforce, brand spanking new manufacturing facilities, excellent advertising campaign, and negative, small workforce, lazy workforce, losses year after year, and so on. And then there's external factors as well. So things like changes in the law, competition, you've got no control over a company opening up down the road, and so on. So I hope that's cleared that up. And as I say, while we do use SWOT analysis to analyze businesses, you can also use them. It's just an analysis tool. You can use them for yourself if you wanted to. If you find yourself at a life junction and you're thinking, well, where do I go from here? You can do a SWOT analysis on yourself. So yeah, so, well, what are my strengths? Well, I've got a degree, I've got money in the bank, blah, blah, blah. What are my weaknesses? Well, I don't speak a foreign language, I'm terrible at IT. What are my opportunities? Well, I'm looking for a new job, I have some free time at the end of the week, and so on and so forth. So it's just a way of looking at something. Anyway, we're now knocking on to 12.5 minutes, so we'll call it a day there. I hope you found that interesting or useful. If you've got any queries, just post them in the forum thread below. And as I say, I will be posting more specific guidance on TMA2, actually probably in the next couple of days, actually, just so you've got plenty of time to think about it. Okay, thanks a lot.